So, I am Dr. Alice Reid. I'm your senior minister here, and I'm really happy to greet you here this morning on this Labor Day weekend. What a great crowd for Labor Day. Yes. Woo! All right, we're having a little technical difficulty, but I'm going to try to hold on to this wireless mic. It works so much better. So we have a beautiful annual theme that we're working with. The theme is rising higher, growing deeper. And it comes from that idea that as below, so above, that all the work that we do on the inner shows up in the outer. And this month we've been talking about on the wings of love. On the wings of love. And so for most of the month we've been exploring love as a flight pattern. It's been this fun arc of a travel log, if you will. And we've been on this craft that is bringing us through the process of looking at love as an everyday practice. And complementary on this flight is a heap and helping of forgiveness. And so we've been looking at forgiveness as one of those vehicles to bringing us to a greater sense of love within ourselves. And Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of this particular movement, the Centers for Spiritual Living, which is almost 100 years old, depending upon when you gauge it. We're already 100 years old. So it's a beautiful philosophy that's been out in the world for a while. And one of the things that Dr. Holmes has always said is that love points the way and that the law makes the way possible. And what we mean by the law is this immutable presence that is forever recreating itself into form. And so I've added a little subtext in between that love points the way and the law makes the way possible. I like to think that love points the way, forgiveness clears the way, and then law makes the way possible. And so as we look at this idea of love, we have, in week one, we did the launch of love. We talked about that great quote from Hilliard, who talks about igniting love, and rediscovery of love is like the rediscovery of fire. And in week two, we looked at the love's ascent, and Reverend Karen led us through this wonderful idea of cultivating an inner experience and an inner lift through the four immeasurables, which are Buddhist principles of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, so that love rises from within, not from effects or circumstances. And then in the third week, which was last week, we talked about soaring in love, and we talked a little bit about the turbulence when you're working with love, and how we can practice more wholehearted presence, a oneness or a union, if you will. And I introduced to you 4 mantras that came out of Plum Village and Thich Nhat Hanh's crowd. And those mantras were, I'm here for you, I know you're there, I know you're suffering, I am suffering, please help. Now, we don't talk about suffering too much in this teaching, but the truth is, whenever we are out of alignment with Spirit, often some suffering, some misalignment, some challenges occur within us. And so we talked about acknowledging that and acknowledging each other and stepping into that place of oneness. And this week, I'm talking about love's descent. And we'll bring it down to earth, and we'll look at how we can bring this practice of love and integrate it with forgiveness into our daily affairs, into our choices, into our interactions. And by now, after all this, you probably were here a long time ago. You're probably here before we started talking about it this month. But we know that love isn't just a feeling. It's a practice. And one of the most effective ways for us to really make space for unadulterated love in our lives is forgiveness. And by forgiveness, I mean the forgiveness in the traditional sense when we're in relationship and we want to heal something that's not jiving in our relationships, but I also mean forgiveness from a place of release of old thought patterns, release of old behaviors, letting go of obstacles that we place or layer on top of ourselves so that the thing that we want to experience, love in our lives and in our relationship, is unencumbered by the obstacles that we may have placed on it. And oftentimes, those obstacles are born from a place of fear or a place of disappointment, or sometimes it's just a sheer need to survive a situation, right? We all have the situations where it's like, not this again. And so our survival skills kick in and we find ourselves drawing on those old behaviors. And when we look at this whole topic of love through the lens of Buddhism and Thich Nhat Hanh and science of mind combined, we find ourselves with the ability to step into a conscious and intentional place where we can begin to recognize those old patterns, those old thought ideas that we grab onto. And even sometimes, I'll talk about myself, even sometimes it's a behavior pattern that I've drawn on because I needed it to feel safe, right? And I still, I feel a lot safer in the world than I did when I was a young woman, and yet it's low-hanging fruit when I'm stressed, when I'm challenged, when I'm dealing with a situation and I'm not sure how to move through it. And even when I'm conscious, of it, I'll still be lazy. Anybody like that? Anybody can relate? I'm just lazy, and I don't mean to denigrate myself, but sometimes it's hard to give yourself that space, that little pause, so that you can respond from a pattern or a behavior that you want to respond from, instead of something that's old news, a deep groove that we've carved out for ourselves in our lives. And I often experience some level, I think I'm standing on the wires. I think that's the problem. I'm going to watch where my feet. I can often find myself in a place of disappointment. And yesterday I had one of those experiences. It's a silly experience. It's kind of trite, but I'm going to use it as a model here. I went out for coffee, and I ordered an almond croissant. Now, I love almond croissants. And sometimes they're wonderful, and sometimes they're really disappointing. Sometimes they're just not, it's just a roll with some almonds on the top of it. And so, as I often do, I'm in my little almond croissant survival mode, and I say to the cashier, "Does it have filling in it? Does it really have filling in it?" He says, "Oh, yes, it does." Nope. No filling in that almond croissant. And so I felt it my duty to let the cashier know that he had misinformed me about this almond croissant. And I thought, I did it with some kindness, kind of out of the side of my mouth kindness, but kindness. Like, next time someone asks that question, it's not there. And I threw it out. And it is trite, but in hindsight, what I can tell you is even the subtleness of a little disappointment can be an invitation. You think Dave Page was behind me beating on the drums. Sometimes disappointment, dissatisfaction can be just a little trigger I need or actually the invitation I need to dig a little deeper, to see what it is that's coming up for me, that I felt it was important to let those folks know about their croissants. And oftentimes, for me at least, it'll turn up kind of like a bad penny, that behavior of being disappointed and wanting to protect myself from being disappointed. And sometimes it shows up in pastry. And sometimes it shows up in my relationships. and everything in between. And here's the rub, what I realize as I look at that simple little episode yesterday was that honestly what I was walking through was fear of disappointment, right? Fear of disappointment. So subtle, I projected it all onto a role. and it was really just my fear of being disappointed. And that doesn't show up just in pastry. That also shows up in some of my relationships, a fear of being disappointed. And so I find myself trying to do all the hat tricks to manage my level of disappointment. But we don't teach that in this philosophy. There is no place in the chapter where, in the textbook of the Science of Mind, and where Ernest Holmes gives us a lesson on managing disappointment. Not at all. No, we're supposed to manage our intention and our consciousness. We're supposed to look at those places where we can express spirit in its grandest way, in the way that's authentic to us. I don't believe that being disappointed is my highest expression at all. And love and forgiveness, this all ties in because for me, I feel like I have done a lot of the work with the important major relationships in my life and with the forgiveness work, but I still have these layers, this residue that infects some of my relationships and my behavior and my thought patterns, and I have to continue to be mindful of that. And Thich Nhat Hanh and his crowd at Plum Village give us these beautiful 5 mindful techniques and practices that we can use to be present in every moment. And before I share that with you, I want to share a little bit about what happens when we are mindful, when we are conscious, when we are willing to look at those little disappointments as opportunities for us to have a grander and bigger experience. And my intuition woke me up this morning, and I heard Chrissy Hyde singing Mystery Achievement. Anybody know the Pretenders? Yes. Yeah, and Mystery Achievement. Yes. There's nothing in the lyrics that's metaphysical. But that title, Mystery Achievement, is that thing that happens when we are willing to step into the unknown and trust that a presence, something that's moving in as and through us, wants to express by means of us. It almost feels like a mystery achievement. It's not because I did a bunch of heavy lifting. It's because I did the practices over and over again to look at the little pastry struggles that I might be experiencing, to look underneath them, to see where those things might be living in my life so that I can have a truly conscious and intentional experience in my relationships, whether it's with a cashier or my beloved. So the 5 mindfulness trainings that Thich Nhat Hanh offers us are beautiful ideas. And that's what when we're looking at principle or we're looking at practices at their highest level, they are things for us to aspire to. And so Thich Nhat Hanh says that the first mindfulness training is reverence for all life. And I'm gonna tell you what the 5 are, and then I'm gonna drill down on each one briefly. So the first one is reverence for all life. The second one is true happiness. The third one is true love. The fourth one is loving speech and deep listening. And the 5th one is nourishment and healing. And so when we look at that first one, reverence for all life, it's really about choosing to release subtle aggression. Anybody familiar with subtle? Do you know what I mean by subtle aggression? I mean, feeling the need to tell the cashier there was no almond filling in the almond pastry is subtle aggression. So if I'm actually stepping into this place of reverence for all life, I'm I'm pausing. The practice example would be that before you react, and while I did think about it, I dismissed it because of my disappointment. And I'll share a little more about that in just a second. But before reacting, we breathe once and discern if whatever course of action has come forward for us is non-harmful. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? The second mindfulness training is true happiness, and that's choosing generosity over grasping. You know what I mean? Choosing to be generous of spirit rather than trying to get what we can out of a situation. And so the practice example would be offering your attention or your time or your help to the object of your concern, the object of the person you might be feeling resentful for, or the place where you're feeling that uneasiness. And you don't always have to do it verbally. You could just do it in your heart to create that energy within yourself. And it creates that deeper sense of connection with that spirit that lives within you that wants to be expressed by means of you. The third one is true love. And true love is where we love ourselves and we love the other. We love ourselves and we love the other, so that we take responsibility for our part of loving ourselves. We take our responsibility by setting clean boundaries with other people, so that when we are in relationship, it's true love. It's the love that recognizes my needs and your needs and tries to find that place in between them. And these 5 mindfulness trainings kind of work together, and you'll start to see that as I get to the next one, which is loving speech and deep listening. There's this great song, I Need You to Survive, and the line in it talks about, I won't use words from my mouth to harm you. I won't use, and I love that idea. It's really stuck with me to watch the words that I speak, to really be curious about what's coming up in this conversation that I might be having with the person, or the anger or the resentment that might be coming up, or even just the sheer disappointment. And so when our wires get crossed, the practice is to be open and to be honest. And so if it's a conversation with a friend or a loved one, you could simply try this sentence, because you can, you all feel it when we're out of alignment with somebody and there's intention. A loving example would be to simply say, when blank happened, I felt this way. How was it for you? And then to listen deeply, so that you're creating connection. You're creating that not only are you being heard, but you're making an opportunity for someone else to be heard in a loving and kind way. And then finally, nourishment and healing. This is an easy one. Stop feeding the grievance loop. It's like a little Pac-Man or Ms. Pac-Man, and you just keep feeding it, it'll just come back for more, because it's never satiated. And so if we can allow ourselves to step away from the grievance loop, either by doing some deep listening, or practicing true love or true happiness, or looking at that reverence for all life, if we can step away from the grievance loop, we can begin to make space for a different experience. We can take, the practice example is to take 24 hours and fast from outrage. Just try it. 24 hours, there's lots to be outraged about. Try fasting from it for 24 hours. Do something uplifting. Listen to music. Take a walk in nature. Sit with a dear beloved. In the final analysis, the almond croissant analysis, I had to be willing to be more mindful. I had to be willing to see what was really at the heart of my disappointment. There was something there besides the level of filling in a $4 pastry. And what it really was my longing for companionship. And instead of feeling that longing for companionship, I chose to feel the longing for almond filling. It was easier. It was a little safer. And yet, none of that is going to change that longing. But these mindfulness practices will set me in a place where I can be honest and open with myself, where I could allow myself to create a larger space in the infinitude that is within each one of us to really experience my heart's desire. And so that is we have completed our flight. We have brought love descent into our lives. I have given you practices that you can use when you want to experience more love. I will publish these in my blog, and they'll go out on our newsletter if you're interested in some of these practices. They're all ways to help us to be conscious in a world that is screaming for us to be distracted. Thank you very much. Okay. So, if you'll close your eyes or lower your gaze, I'm going to invite us to just do a little practice right here and now. To allow yourself to simply follow your breath, feeling the rise and fall of your chest. And for the most part, how easy it is to just be in the stillness of the rhythm of your breath. What I know is that love is the demonstration of the infinite presence, wanting to express itself as each one. And so I know as we peel away the layers and the obstacles, the old ideas, the patterns that we have put in the way of love, as we let go and forgive, we feel our heart opening. We feel our mind more present. And it is that mindfulness and that presence that allows us to be grounded in love, to allow love to make its full way into form, in the form of our relationships and our lives. And so I know for each one that love is indeed present, that love is available, that there is an opportunity to simply release anything unlike love, so that indeed we are walking in each other's shoes, hand in hand, allowing love to bring us home, feeling the fulfillment of being fully alive, fully aware, and fully connected. And so it is with gratitude that I speak this word. I know this truth for each one. I know this truth for myself. We absolutely anchor this in that same loving presence. And together we say, and so it is.